A cryptid is an animal that's claimed to exist, but there's no concrete proof of its existence, like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot. This is the Cryptid Iceberg, which has well-known entries on the top, and the farther down you go, the more obscure these entries get. And because I assume most people watch these iceberg videos to see what's at the bottom, I'm going to be doing just that. Also, quick plug, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm about halfway there, but if I could get your support, I greatly appreciate it, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. The 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿 is a sort of hyper-intelligent cyborg monkey that was first created in a lab but has since broken free. This cryptid looks similar to an orangutan, but half its face is robotic with an eye that's always glowing on that side, which is where most of the spawnings come from. The scientist who made this monkey is unknown, but a lot of people actually believe it was Albert Einstein, of all people, because he's said to have been really uneasy when he was asked about the 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿 in an interview. It's been sighted in multiple different places, but our best guess to where it calls home is in Kenya. It's said that explorers in the country came across a rundown lab in the middle of a forest with blueprints for a genetically modified creature along with a broken tank that also contained some hair. This hair had part orangutan DNA and part officially modified DNA. The unnatural side of its DNA is likely why the monkey is so intelligent and even knows to turn its face to the side when stalking prey so that they don't see the robotic eye. This is the only one of its kind, as the monkey was made in a lab procedure gone wrong and now goes around terrifying the people of Kenya. The Wuhnan toads are said to be a species of gigantic albino frogs that used to reside in the Hubei province of China in the Baofeng Lake. They were first documented in 1962 when local fishermen were concerned about the safety of their families. They decided to try and get rid of these pests by throwing sticks of dynamite into the center of the lake, but this only worked to anger them and lure out an even more terrifying toad known as Chan in the community that was the most dangerous of all the other toads. In 1987, a group of 9 scientists from the Peking University launched an expedition to try and record these animals on film. They set up camp near the shore of the lake, and later that day they saw 3 massive creatures slowly swim up to shore near them. The researchers described them as having pale skin and a 6-foot wide mouth that could easily devour any of them. One of the toads, now up on land, shot out its tongue at the group but only snatched the tripod to their camera, and then they retreated back down into the depths of the lake. Finally realizing the horrifying truth of their situation, the scientists quickly left camp, and the Wuhnan toads haven't been spotted since. However, they could still just be living in the depths of the lake, waiting for the next person to try and approach them. Black Volga. This is an urban legend throughout Eastern Europe, but mainly just in Poland. It's not really much of a cryptid because it's just the black model of the 𝐥𝐤𝐤 Volga car. Despite that, this car has garnered a notorious reputation throughout the area. In the 60s and 70s, countless stories spread about people being abducted in this specific car to the point where, upon seeing one, people would first think of the rumored abductions. Okay, this car is definitely kind of spooky looking, right? But it's entirely possible that this could just be the model that certain mafias use. That could be the explanation for the correlation, but people eventually took this a step further into cryptid territory, where it is said to be driven by Satan himself. Other people will cite rumors of the KGB's supposed kidney theft rampage at the time and say that they were all using Black Volgas to do this. Nothing huge ever came from this suspicion in Poland, but it was later on used for the basis of SCP-265 as a self-driving Black Volga that stalks and harasses pedestrians. 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿 is a ghoul-like creature that was first reported in the Civil War among the dead bodies at the Battle of 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐿 in 1863, the second deadliest battle in the war by casualties. Reports describe it to be human-like with eerie green eyes and a huge deformed jaw. Its origins are unclear, but people speculate that it's a spirit who was either created at or drawn to the site after the amount of blood that was shed there in battle. Other theories suggest that this ghoul has been haunting the area long before Europeans came to North America, which is entirely possible. This area is now known as the 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐿 National Park, and in the modern day, people are still reporting sightings of the creature. In 1970, 2 different car accidents happened at pretty much the same spot in the park, with both of the drivers swerving off the road into a ditch after seeing that signature pair of green eyes stare them down in the road. In 1976, a park ranger was walking through the forest around 4 AM when he felt an out-of-nowhere chill rush over his body, and the next moment he saw a green-eyed being step out of the darkness. In an interview, he said, "When it passed me, I could see his hair was long like a woman's. The eyes, I'll never forget those eyes. They were glaring, almost greenish-orange in color, flashing like some sort of wild animal. The teeth were long and pointed like fangs." Reading around in forums about this cryptid, plenty of other people have given their own stories about green eyes in the 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐿 National Park, which I live like an hour drive from, so I might have to do some cryptid hunting soon, we'll see. Humanoid creature in Romanian zoo. This one doesn't have a lot of history or documentation behind it other than this YouTube video posted in 2014. The video shows this guy walking through the zoo trying not to expose that he's recording, but when he goes inside a dark room with a few other people, they're all freaking out by the presence of whatever this thing is that the zoo captured. We only see the creature for a few seconds in the dark room, but it seems very agitated and angry that it's caged up. Looking further into the zoo, apparently it was shut down in 2007, so long before this video came out, due to not meeting safety standards for the EU. Of course, the most likely explanation here is that the video is faked in hopes of going viral because the other people in the room with the humanoid creature sound very scripted, but I guess you never know. And some people will say this is why the zoo closed in 2007 as a cover-up, but I don't know. The Lake Worth monster is a lot like Bigfoot, but exclusive to the Lake Worth area in Texas. In the 1970s, several couples came forward with reports of seeing this beast and describing it as a sort of man-goat with fur and scales, and it even made front-page news in local papers with the headline, "Fishy man-goat terrifies couples parked at Lake Worth." John Reichert, a man who reported being directly attacked by the creature, said that the monster jumped out of a tree onto his car and left a 1.5-foot dent, which sort of started this mass hysteria and spike in sightings. If you ask me though, this dude is definitely just attempting insurance fraud and is trying to claim his car's damage is done by wildlife, but fair enough. The only photo we have of this cryptid is from 1969 by Alan Plaster, which doesn't show much, but it displays a large white body lurking through the shore of the lake. As for explanations on this creature's origin, the best we have is a group of high school students claiming they were the ones that were pranking people dressed up in a gorilla suit in 1969, but there's not a lot of evidence for this claim. Darkwoods Demon. This one is more of a creepypasta than an actual cryptid, but it's said to be based on true events. I'm a big fan of creepypastas, so I read through it, and it follows the story of this hunter who goes into the woods looking to kill a buck. Towards the beginning of the trip, he sees an 8-pointer laying on the forest floor dead, but what catches his attention is the way it was mangled with several organs missing while being methodically mutilated, much unlike a natural predator would do to a deer. A little after this, he gets overwhelmed by this feeling of being watched and eventually goes so paranoid that he begins running out of the forest, not sure where this supposed stalker predator is. Soon enough, however, he comes face to face with the monster that actually did exist, and I'll just read a short excerpt from the story that describes the demon's appearance. It was hideously ugly, easily standing 8 feet tall with a thick, muscular body. It looked very apish in appearance, but then again, it didn't. There was just something about that face that was just wrong, almost like an obscene amalgamation of a man and animal that had gone horribly awry. It was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. It was completely covered with thick, shaggy black hair and was matted in areas with God only knows what. Of course, the man escaped back to civilization, but his perception of the world has been completely changed, now realizing that monsters lurk out there in the forest. The whole story itself, like I mentioned, is based on real events, but from what I could find, this is the only reported sighting of the Darkwoods Demon. The Mutant Muppet is a child humanoid looking thing, but just beyond deformed, with what seems like an arm extending from the chin with a bunch of other shocking features. It's around 2 feet in height with large ears, thin eyes, a flattened nose with long fingers. It was spotted once by a group of hunters visiting Namibia, Africa. The story goes that they were out hunting in the savannah when one of them noticed this creature foraging for food, and one of the men in the group shot it for whatever reason. It didn't really sound that aggressive, but alright. Still though, after wounding it, they tracked it back to a nearby nest where there were 3 more similar looking creatures. When they noticed the hunters, the wounded one attacked them and was shot dead by the rest of the men, who all fled into the bush. I feel bad kinda saying cryptid and creature because given the small chance that this isn't another hoax, it's likely a kid with a Siamese twin explaining the extra arm that either ran away or was expelled from home because of its shocking appearance and then was forced to forage for food in the wilderness. Sandown Clown. All we have is an artist's depiction of this being, but it's said to be over 2 meters in height, mostly humanoid but with an oversized head, white skin that had the consistency of paper, hands and feet with only 3 fingers, all in a clown costume. Most theories guess that this creature is an alien due to its far from Earth-like features. It was only spotted once by a pair of young children whose family were vacationing at Lake 𝐿𝐴, UK in 1973. The kids were exploring the forest when they came face to face with this clown, and it for the most part seemed friendly. They described it as a cross between a clown, robot, and alien. Crazy that they weren't scared by this and ran away, but they instead talked to it for about half an hour until eventually having to head home, and the clown was never spotted again. Possibly just a one-time visit to Earth though. If you ask me, it was probably just some dude in a clown costume in the woods, but who really will never know. Bad Beast of Kent. So in 1963, 4 British teenagers reportedly saw a UFO land nearby in a forest, so they headed over to see what it was. When getting there, they were met with this bizarre bat-like beast that came out of it. In their words, it didn't seem to have any head, there were huge wings on its back, like bat wings. First thing I noticed from the artist's depiction is the duck feet though, which like, it can't be that scary if it's got duck feet. Right as they saw this beast though, they ran to the nearest police station and reported it to them, even though they were very, very skeptical. After looking into the incident a little bit more, the police gathered several other reports of people in the area also having seen the UFO landing in the forest. When they went out to where the boys saw the creature, they even found large 24-inch wide footprints left in the dirt. Skeptics have come to the conclusion that this was just an oddly illuminated crow that the boys saw. How this could be mistaken for a 5-foot tall monster, I'm not sure, but regardless of the abundance of mystery surrounding this incident, there's a lot of evidence in eyewitness reports saying, you know, maybe there could be something out there. Moores Beach Monster. In 1925 at Moores Beach, California, a carcass washed up on shore. Which isn't that crazy, but this creature looks really out of the ordinary with a reported duck-shaped head and an extra long neck. It kind of just decayed there in the sun for a few days, but then this guy, 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿, not a scientist, just some guy, came to inspect it and declared it to be the remains of a plesiosaur, an aquatic dinosaur that went extinct around 65 million years ago. His explanation for how it just washed up on shore 65 million years later is that it was frozen and preserved in a glacier that had recently melted, and then the currents brought it there to them. This idea spread around quickly and was published in several newspapers at the time. Soon enough though, the California Academy of Sciences got a hold of the skull from this creature and published that it was actually a Baird's-beaked whale, which in all honesty though is kind of a stupid looking whale, so fair enough. Also, I got curious and looked around for this 𝐿𝐤𝐤𝐿 guy who started the hoax and reports. Turns out he just never existed, as reporters at the time found no trace of his past, and this is the only time he ever appeared. Lakewood Screecher. This is a cryptid that nobody's actually ever seen, but its existence is locally known in the Lakewood, Quebec region of Canada due to the signature call that this creature emits. This is pretty much all that's known about it, but from reports, people say its screech in person causes a painful throbbing sensation in the head, nosebleeds, nausea, and vomiting. The audio of the screech comes from someone on YouTube named ChrisFids21, whose clips I've been playing, and if you want to watch a whole video detailing this guy's supposed documentation of a new creature, check this video out because the story is really interesting, but the TLDR is that this guy Chris is going through the woods and hears this noise coming out from somewhere and finds himself constantly returning back to the spot trying to locate the origin of the sound. Throughout the uploads, he seems to become more and more mentally ill until he just completely disappears, never being able to find the Lakewood Screecher. However, I can promise you this is an ARG, which is like scripted YouTube videos that would make you think they're real, but nothing crazy is actually happening here. However, that doesn't take away from this. It's a really well done story, but it just means the Lakewood Screecher probably isn't real. Giant penguin. This was a creature spotted in Clearwater Beach, Florida several times throughout 1948. The people who supposedly saw this thing said it was like a penguin in shape, but at least 15 feet tall with huge 3-toed feet that also had claws on them. Other than eyewitness reports, the only evidence we have of its existence is this picture of its footprint implanted into the sand that was published in a local newspaper. It's said to have been spotted off the Gulf Coast by fishermen and from a plane flying over the Suwannee River in northern Florida in the same year, but aside from that, this cryptid has never been seen again. The pig-faced women started being reported independently all across Europe in the 1630s, like in Holland, England, and France. The stories being passed around simply described a woman whose body is normal in appearance but has the head of a pig, and most people agreed this was the result of witchcraft, because you know, it's the 1600s. Legends say that a groom will be approached by a witch on his wedding day and be given the offer that his wife would appear to everyone else as having a pig head except for him, so there would be no worries of infertility, and you know, definitely 1600 dudes, most of them accepted this. These stories of pig-faced women lingered into the 1800s where people sort of just accepted their existence as fact, especially in Ireland. From what I could tell, people still believed in them around 1924, where the last newspaper about them was published. Even Charles Dickens commented on the longevity of this rumor, saying, "In every age, I suppose there's been a pig-faced lady." There's a ton of different accounts of people experiencing pig-faced women in the Middle Ages, and I could go on for forever, but the stories have pretty much completely faded from popular culture today, so there haven't really been any modern pig-faced lady sightings. The Moha is a turtle-like creature that is said to live in the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia. It's supposedly 8 feet in width and 5 feet in height, and honestly looks more like a Pokemon, but fair enough. It was first spotted by Miss S. Lovell, a teacher in Queensland who just saw it off the shore. There were 8 more sightings in the same week of the creature, but after that it seemingly retreated back into the depths of the ocean to never be seen again. Looking back further though, this cryptid was also part of folklore amongst the native Aborigines people who originally settled in Australia, and it was said to be extremely aggressive, having attacked their villages and killing tribe members on several occasions. Given the general description of the Moha, it could definitely be confused with other cryptids like the Loch Ness Monster or possibly modern day plesiosaurs like we talked about earlier, but its signature turtle shell is what sets it apart, and that's the only way you can really identify this one. Camera heads are kind of like skinwalkers in the way that they can appear human but are a lot more dangerous. This class of creatures have unnoticeable cameras implanted into their eyes, however they can also be depicted as human but with an actual camera for a head with a bunch of wires stemming from the neck, suggesting a more biomechanical trait like I used in the thumbnail. The cryptid's origins are a little dicey because it's said to have come from a creepypasta which has since been lost, but there are countless people on the internet claiming to remember the story of camera heads. This whole thing is just kind of like a big game of telephone, so its real description can't be too exact and it's pretty broad, but definitely a lot unknown about this creature, which I think just adds to how scary it might be. The Kting Voar is a part of Cambodian and Vietnamese folklore and is described to be a cow-like animal with twisting horns 20 inches long and spotted fur. Okay, this one might not be some creepypasta scary story because it was never reported to be aggressive, but just kind of scary looking. But like, it was also known for eating snakes, which isn't something cows do, so that's kind of badass, right? Some scientists have come forward saying it's entirely possible this could have been an undiscovered species, but it likely went extinct before anyone could document it in the modern era. The only other evidence I could find for this is in 2020, someone got a picture of this Australian cow chewing on a snake, so it could be a possible adaptation for a cow species to make, who knows? Okay, this is the very last entry on the iceberg, and it's the killer cactus. This is actually about a known species of cactus called the jumping 𝐥𝐤𝐤, which sort of jumps on you by easily detaching spikes from the rest of the plant, but never actually moving like a piranha plant would, for example. The idea here though is that many people have reported a sort of intelligence in these plants, saying they deliberately shot cactus pricks at them with murderous intent. I mean, like, a sentient plant would be kind of cool, but I feel safe saying this is probably just people having heat stroke in the desert or just tripping balls, because from what I could figure out, the jumping 𝐥𝐤𝐤 just don't do that, you know? Thank y'all so much for sticking around and watching the video. If you could subscribe, since I guess you already made it this far, that'd be awesome. And for the people that came here from the SpongeBob characters iceberg, I'm working on part 2, just gonna add some more characters in there, just wait. But other than that, I guess just have a good day.